Good morning, my name is Dalton Adams, and these are my colleagues. They will introduce themselves later. How can we as chemists design a future fuel that will be more environmentally friendly and be more efficient to the cars? These are some terms you should get to know. I'll give you a moment to glance over them.
So, to begin, my name is Jake White. I'm going to take you through a short overview of the project we were given. Our goal is to design a new future fuel, which is exactly what it says in the tin. It's a new fuel that can keep America and the world running at the same pace we do today, but also reduce our CO2 emissions so that we can also save it. So, our short overview is we are an environmentally safe company. So, we wanted to make sure we fit EPA regulations, which are 200,000 moles of carbon dioxide produced per 60,000 units of energy. We also gave ourselves $1 million in which to accomplish this goal.
So the common myth would be that all CO2 emissions come from transportation. Well, by this pie chart, you can tell that not all of it comes from that. Most of it comes from electricity, and then you have transportation at 31%. And the rest of it, as you can see, is also the rest of the CO2 emissions. And in this chart, you can see the carbon dioxide emissions in the past 10 years, 20 years. And as you notice, it kept rising until about 2009, and then it took a little dip. And from then, it's been, a little fluctuating.
Now, hello, my name is Hunter Spope, and these three fuels we were given to work with in this situation, we have octane, ethanol, and methanol. Octane is the fuel that we get when we distill the crude oil that we get when we drill out of the ground. Ethanol is the fuel that we get when we distill any starchy plant like corn, wheat, or barley, or any sugar plant like sugar cane or sugar beets. And methanol is the fuel that we get when we take any plant, turn it into gas, and then turn that gas into methanol. And now here we have the different effects that we have on the fuel industry itself. There is political, geological, price, supply and demand, and cost risk. The political risk is just making sure that we don't get bad rep from either the government or from the media. The geologic risk is just making sure we drill in the proper spots as to not upset Mother Nature or environmentalists. The price risk is making sure that the cost of the fuel for the consumers is not too high. The supply and demand is making sure that we drill enough of the fuel for the consumers to buy. And the cost risk is just making sure that the overall cost on the industry is not too great.
So, now that we've taken you through a short overview of the different kinds of fuels and some of the various tools we're using to make our new future fuel, it's time for our proposal. So, for those of you who don't have an eye for chemistry, this may look like a confusing string of numbers and letters. Believe me, it looked the same way to me when I first saw it. However, this is the scientific and mathematical proof that our new fuel produces 1/5 of the carbon dioxide as a straight octane most of us use to get here today.
See, and now this chart is just of the CO2 emissions produced by the three different fuels that we have. As you can see, octane is way up there. It's very high. And you can see the green bar for methanol, but you can't see a red bar because ethanol and methanol produce the exact same amount of CO2 per unit of energy.
And as you can see by this chart, this is the cost to produce each option. Octane is lower, and methanol is a little higher, but ethanol is just right, just like the Three Little Bears.
So, my colleague here is going to hand you an iPad with a more zoomed-in version of this chart. What this details is it shows our proposal, affectionately named Option A. It's just a little nickname we have for it, which is a 92 to 8 part ethanol to octane mix. This is our new future fuel that you will soon be pumping into gas stations wherever you go. Options B and C are straight octane and ethanol, just for reference purposes. And as an added bonus, we also added 2 currently existing ethanol and octane compound fuels, E15 and E85. Using this chart, you can see exactly how our fuel is better than anything anyone has yet made, which means we're making some real changes here. So, to take you over a really quick review, why is option A the best? Well, the chemistry proves it. However, on 3 other smaller notes, we produced our energy quota. We're still under our $1 million budget. We're producing 1/5 the carbon dioxide as straight octane. Those are numbers we can all agree with. Those are numbers that are going to save the world. Future fuels. Any questions from the panelists?
So in the original, you had a chart way back that showed a 20-year
Mhm.
bump and rise.
Mhm.
So what made that dip in 2009?
Wasn't it George Bush?
Increased awareness as to the greenhouse gas problem resulted in a lot of Environmental Protection Agency policies being written into law that, of course, resulted in less CO2 emissions being done because of the heavy fines that resulted from big factories.
So then that would have also created a dip in the economy if it was harder to get the fuel.
Yes. Very good question. Glad you asked that. Anyone else?
With the decreasing price of gasoline as it is now, is your product still competitive, knowing that a year ago we were paying $1 more a gallon for gas than what we are right now? Is this product competitive with pricing because the economy's on the move now, everyone says, because gas prices are down?
An unfortunate statistic with ethanol is that a lot of it can depend on the supply of corn available during the harvest season. So it can fluctuate up to $2 in either direction depending on drought, any kind of other variables that would affect the amount of harvest we're getting. However, I do believe our fuel would still be competitive even with the lower gas prices we see now, because with gas prices we know that whenever it goes down, it's going to come back up. Anyone else?
Specific questions, that's what you're asking.
Yes.
I'm curious if you're claiming that you're creating a new fuel when I'm just a little concerned about the terminology. I mean,
Okay.
you're really kind of creating a mixture of existing fuels per se, right?
Yes.
So you're not like creating a new fuel.
It is a fuel in the way that E15 or E85 is a fuel.
Okay.
It's also a compound fuel, but a fuel nonetheless.
Absolutely. Okay. So I guess I would be concerned to make sure you're clarifying that you're optimizing within these parameters that are created. And I think the other point's valid to consider if the parameters have changed in the last year and how much so, because I'm not sure either.
Okay.
And how to go about even approaching that. I know it works for this model, and your solution to this model is outstanding. I think the model has changed slightly. So, if you're interested in looking at that further, I would be curious myself.
Thank you.
Is there a byproduct created when you're making the ethanol? What happens with what's left of the corn? What are we doing with that, and how does that affect our environment?
Well, with the corn, you are getting the CO2 emissions, but you're also getting water, and the water is a lot easier to deal with than the CO2 emissions.
And what are you doing with the water?
The water comes out as water vapor, which flies into the atmosphere, comes down as rain. So it's not something we need to concern ourselves with at this point.
Is there a chart somewhere where you point out we're buying this much ethanol, this much methanol, and this much octane, and what were those numbers again?
Well, we took methanol completely off the table because it has the same energy value as ethanol, but almost twice the price. However, in the earlier chart, we did show the total cost for producing 60,000 units of energy. So you can take those numbers and you can find the percentages of what we
That's
offer
on
each
that
one.
chart right there, if you want to look at that a bit closer.
Awesome. I really like that you made up your own term with units of energy.
It's a common term, we decided to abbreviate it.
I know.
What does this look like in effect with the auto industry? What kind of changes need to be made to automobiles? Is this something that they can readily equip an already, created automobile with, or is this we're starting over a redesign?
Well, it is a mixture of fuels that we already use, so and those fuels do work in automobiles, so with this mixture, the fuel would still work in our vehicles, so there would be no need for any changes in the cars whatsoever.
We would need to make sure we are considering that this is a fuel that has more mass per unit of energy than straight octane. So there would need to be some minor changes made, because we all know that some cars can't take fuel above E15 because of efficiency reasons. So there would need to be some minor changes made, but it wouldn't necessarily have to completely reinvent the car in order to make this fuel work.
And fuel stations, gas stations, obviously there would need to be a change. Not every gas station to go to has an E15, E85
Exactly.
pump. So I'm assuming you're also planning for, as you plan in the future,
Mhm.
that's part of what you're going to have, that's an industry you're also going to have to be working
All
in.
part of the master plan. Any more questions or comments from the panelists? All right. Have a nice day.